Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for hitting that play button for another episode of the Hetty Coleman podcast, where I have go in conversations with fabulous people so that I can get their story out to the world. Now, the reason I want to do that is three reasons. One, I believe that when we share our stories, we learn from one another, but we also learn about each other. Number two is that we inspire one another. And then three, we connect. And in that connection, I feel like community is formed. Now, we may not be in the same city or anything, but that connection helps us form a community. And I believe that community wins. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I have the one and only Patrick Patterson. And Patrick, a father, let me first say a husband, a father, an author, an entrepreneur, bring a mentor, just all of that. And so I'm just excited to be able to just sit down and have a conversation with my man. What's up, Patrick?
What's going on, Hetty? Good to see you, man. I need your barber, brother. Here in North Carolina, look at me, man. I'm getting my scalp greased tonight, man. This is something else.
Where you at again?
I'm in Wake Forest, North Carolina, right outside of Raleigh.
Okay, that's what I thought. And so, man, the thing about me, man, I just go into my bathroom and I grab my clippers and I just started taking it off, man.
It is.
It's pretty easy for me, but I've been seeing a lot of brothers been looking for a barber, man.
Scruffy, yeah.
So how long has it been since you've had, like, when did y'all shut down in North Carolina?
Probably the middle of March. So I haven't been to the barbershop in probably 4 weeks, which I'm actually enjoying, to be honest with you.
Okay.
You know, there's a point in life where I won't say don't care, but you enjoy freedom. And right now, I'm good, man. You know, my wife likes it. My kids are like, Dad, I didn't know you grew a beard. I'm like, I didn't know either.
The coronavirus is bringing a lot out of people, man. We call her Roro here at my house. Roro is changing lives, man. And not only for in bad ways, but there's a lot of good coming out of this as well.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of that?
Yeah, I mean, here's one thing that's happened in our house, man. I've been traveling for a long time, but the last 4 weeks, I have always made my family a priority, and I don't think I'm ever going to travel like I was before.
Really?
Yeah, man. I was doing a Zoom call with some fathers, the beginning of everything. And I have a program I'm running in Charlotte. And at the beginning of the call, one of my colleagues, he said, this is right when everything shut down. One of my colleagues, he said, hey, man, why don't we meditate for a minute? Everybody's like panicked. He's like, why don't we just pause and meditate? He's a meditator. And so we did it. I've never meditated. I've always prayed, never meditated.
Yeah.
And something happened to me in that 3 minutes. And I called him afterwards, and I watched all these dudes who were running around and talking while they were on Zoom. And when he said, let's meditate, I'm going to guide you guys through the next 3 minutes. He just helped us breathe and just reflect. It was like we put on seatbelts for a minute, and it just slowed everything down. And my kids are doing that now because I brought it in the house.
Yeah.
And my wife, I said, in the mornings we get up, we go to the garage. We bought all the garage equipment, and we exercise and we meditate, which we weren't doing before. We go to church, we do all that stuff. But movies, things like that I think we were doing some of, but now it's like, man, pop some popcorn.
Yeah.
Let's watch this. And it's just been great, man. I tell you, for me, it's allowed me to kind of appreciate what I've done.
Yeah.
But also look forward to just more time on the ground. I'm looking forward to that. That's been great. I mean, I got nothing to complain about.
Yeah, for sure.
How about you?
Man, it's been somewhat the same way, man. I stay pretty busy. The funny thing is, at the beginning of the year, I have a word of the year, and my word of the year was less for 2020. And so I said, well, God has a funny way, and not saying God caused the coronavirus or anything like that, but man, I really have less in my life right now. And so it has really allowed for me to reflect and be like, okay, well, what do I not want to start back? Because really now I'm in a good place. Everything's kind of shut down. Like speaking, I had a greeting thing where people were signing me up to come and greet at their events. And
Yeah.
so like just a lot of different things. I'm just like, okay, no, probably not gonna go back to doing that, and just
Yeah.
really kind of streamline and just have less in my life. You know, I
Yeah.
like it simple,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here.
Yeah, I
Same
like it
here.
simple. So my family, most of my family's introverts. So my wife's an introvert. My daughter,
Yeah.
my oldest son's an introvert. I'm the only real extrovert in the family. My middle son
Yeah.
is somewhat, but not like he can chill and take this. So everybody else
Yeah.
is like, this is awesome, you know.
Amazing. Yeah. Bahamas. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm like, man, whatever. I got to get out, man. I got to go figure
Yeah.
something out. So, but it's been good,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I'm excited about getting back going and seeing how we can help people in their lives, and we'll do that. So, but
Yeah.
just thinking about our lives and what that looks like. What were you like as a kid, man?
I'm the third of four. I got a brother 4 years older, a brother 4 years younger, and I got a sister 6 years old. She's the oldest, and I'm the middle child.
Yeah.
So it's funny to hear you talk about your middle son. I am by training outgoing, but I am personally an introvert.
Okay.
I I wear baseball caps all the time. I love music. As a kid, I was very athletic. I'm 5'6". I was always the smallest but the fastest, and so pretty much any sport, and I've got trophies to prove it. You guys can Google me if you want to, but I was a decent athlete, man. I was a really good athlete. I was faster than most people. I was coordinated a little bit more. I have an older brother that played ball. My dad was athletic, but I was pretty inquisitive. Was a people pleaser. A lot of my mother tells the story over and over again of when I was about 8 years old, she sent me to the store to get something. And I brought the thing back to her, and she said, it's the wrong thing. So she said, you got to take it back to the store. And I was gone for 4 hours because I did not want to take it back to the store. I did not want to tell the guy, this isn't it.
Yeah.
I sat outside of the store for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And she tells that story because I also didn't want to disappoint her. I was mad at myself because I bought the wrong thing back from the store for her. Which really kind of drove me into the space of being a teammate. When I played sports, as much as I got accolades, I did my best to call out my offensive lineman, my first baseman. I did that with everything I did, which kind of has me to who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And as a middle child, I didn't want my older sister upset with me because she was a little bit older. My younger brother, he and I are very tight because we kind of grew up together. But I was always in the middle trying to make sure that there was peace in the house, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really who I am.
What is the age difference between you and your younger brother?
4 years.
Okay.
So it's 4 years. 4 years younger. I got a 4-year older brother and a 6-year older sister.
Mm-hmm. So that middle school kind of being that transit. Did you do middle school where you were from?
Oh yeah.
6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Was that middle school?
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Kind of going from a kid now middle school. Did you see some changes in your life? Was there anything that started standing out to you that you can recall?
Middle school was interesting. Yeah, I didn't have a middle school football team. My mom did not let us play the neighborhood team either, so we just played in the neighborhood. I rode my bike to school. This is back in the day. I rode my bike to school. As a 6th grader, that was a big deal, man. I had a bike buddy that we rode together. I lived about 2 miles from the school, so I mean, my ride to school was I could not wait to get up and go to school. Wasn't the best student, Never prided myself on being a reader, but at that point, I was an average student. But my middle school years were very interesting because my classmates were growing, and I wasn't.
But you were the athlete, though, right?
I was an athlete.
Yeah.
I was an athlete.
Yeah.
But, I had muscles. I was still fast. I still had my friend. I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood. You had to earn your way there. But I'll never forget 7th grade, realizing I wasn't growing like my friends were growing. And I never forget this life-changing moment. My uncle, who was in the military, he was in the Air Force. He asked me a question in the 7th grade. We were driving from his house. He had this big house. And he said, you got a girlfriend? I said, yeah. He said, that was kind of a fast response. He said, what's her name? And I said, and he said, you don't have to lie to me. And I was like, Well, truth of the matter is, and he's one of my favorite uncles to talk to. He said, I told him, I said, nobody really wants me because I'm so short. And I never forget this, changed my life. He said, you're a king. I'm seventh grade. He said, you are good enough. And true story. I actually just told him the story, which I never did until his recent birthday 2 weeks ago. And during coronavirus, I had a chance to tell him the whole story. But he said, you're good enough. He said, you are good enough for anybody. He said, you're handsome. He gave me all these positive words. And he said, there's somebody for everybody. And this is the end of the story. Middle school changed my life. Middle school, seventh grade. The next day, there was this girl in school. Her name was Yakisha Foster. She was the girl who had the salt and pepper haircut. She wore the 8-ball jacket.
Yeah.
She had the lottos, the filas. She was the girl in gold chain. She was dating a drug dealer. And I'll never forget, he picked me up from school because he was at our house the last couple of days. And as I'm walking to the school bus, Yakisha Foster, who I just was proud to bump into her in school. I was just like, she's like, move. I'm like, oh, well, she spoke to me.
Yeah.
But she came to the school bus. I was getting picked up on her uncle, and she said on the way out to the school bus, I don't know how this happened. She says, Patrick, I love you. This is seventh grade. This is the day after my uncle said what he said to me.
You're a king.
You're a king. And I'm guessing my walk was different the next day. I don't know. But she has never spoken to me before, except, familiar conversations. But never did she do something like that ever again, even after that day. But it was affirmation that I was good enough. So middle school, after that point, I started working out, and it was different.
Yeah.
It was different.
So you transitioned into high school at some point. Were there any key moments for you in high school that maybe because of that new difference in your life that happened in high school that kind of probably started progressing because of that? Was there anything key moments in high school?
Yeah, we didn't have a middle school team, so I went out for the high school team in 8th grade. Confidence starting to build. I really started appreciating my view, as in my size and the advantages of it. And my uncles and my dad, my older brother, would just kind of rough me up a little bit. And so as an 8th grader, I was playing varsity. So when I got to 9th grade, because I was at the high school so much, people knew me, and I was fast. So people who I didn't know knew me. And it was, high school was great, man. Because of that, what I just told you, it was great. I was a teammate. When I walk, freshmen walk in, they don't know anybody. I knew everybody.
Yeah. Sports will do that for you.
At the games.
Yeah.
I was at the games.
Yeah.
So high school was really interesting in the sense that my grades went down, but my ability to connect with people went up. If that makes sense. I tell my kids all the time, I never carried a book home in high school. I never did. It's not something to brag about.
Yeah.
But in my neighborhood, if you wore that, our high school was C.H. Johnson. If you wore that block J on your jacket, you're good. And I had 5 block J's. So I was good.
Yeah.
I was good.
What was it about being a teammate that you appreciated the most? What was it about being in sports? Was it just the notoriety? Was there something about it that you really gravitated to being a teammate?
I think the pride of us winning. I lost a lot of games in high school. We weren't that good. But in my neighborhood, you were respected. If you were on the team, you made the team. We did do tryouts. And it was a legacy, it's all black high school. It's a legacy school in the neighborhood. People were proud to wear that block J. But being a teammate for me was important to learn and grow. My confidence grew because I was a captain pretty early on. My coaches would have me do the team prayer, the team walkthrough. So I was elevated earlier than most people. So confidence-wise, I kind of had a little bit of swag. This is only 3 years after the 7th grade moment.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of swag to me, but I think it was really just the spirit of the fun. You play ball. I mean, the bus rides, the practice sessions.
Yeah.
It's great memories, man.
You can't even, you have to be a part of it to really understand it,
Yeah.
And
the thing I laugh about today that My wife is like, that wasn't that funny. I'm like, you had to be there.
You had to be there. If you
Yeah,
weren't, you just don't get it, right?
yeah,
You just
yeah.
don't get it. So you have the involved in sports, high school, you graduate. What was next for you after high school? Like, what did that look like for you? Did you go to college? What were some of the
I
key
did.
factors in there that you were help make decisions for what was next after high school?
Well, before I went to college, I would say this, in high school, my parents separated when I was 15. So all of that years growing up, my dad and mom were together. My dad had spent some time in jail, here and there. But when I was born, for whatever reason, he stopped doing all of that stuff. So every day until I was 15, I saw a guy working hard, 3 jobs, everything we needed in our small apartment we got from my dad because he worked 3 jobs. At age 15, my dad went through this kind of like, he relapsed, sober for all those years, and then he started drinking again. He had a big job. He got rid of 3 jobs. He got a big company job at a Coca-Cola factory, and after a year became manager of the factory. And literally, because he knew how to work, became elevated really quickly. And at the end of that 1 year, they had this big corporate gala, and my dad was invited to get this plaque, be recognized. And he went to the thing, he got a plaque, and the night after he finished, we lived in the same neighborhood I grew up in. So he, sober, prison time, had friends who were still in that life, but he stayed connected. And I never forget the story, the way he tells it is when he got home, he was coming back home and the guys knew he was going to get a plaque. They said to him, yo, we got to celebrate this, and my dad told me, he said the first time they asked him, he was like, nah. And I'm a father now. So I'm thinking he was thinking about us. He's like, I've been climbing this slippery rock and I finally am getting somewhere. And if I drink this drink, so second time they asked, just because you know how guys are heading.
Yeah.
They like, man, don't be a blah, blah, blah. And then the last straw was, oh, you think you're better than us now. And that breaks people. So he took 1 drink of a beer, which he hadn't had in 15 years. He took a second drink. Fast forward, a 6-pack was drank. They decided to smoke a joint, marijuana. And then the last thing they did that night was they ended up shooting needles in their arms. So for 3 days, my dad did not come home because he basically relapsed.
Wow.
I'm 15. I'm in the 10th grade.
Yeah.
We actually had just moved to a single family home, and everything changed right then and there. My mom, I'll never forget her coming to me, my younger brother. My older siblings were out of the house. She said, me and your dad separating. I was like, what does separating mean?
Yeah.
Got to be another definition for it.
Yeah.
That can't mean what I think you're saying. And fast forward, my junior year, my senior year, my father, as I walk into practice or leaving a game at night, if there was a guy that was laying in the gutter drunk or high, and I'm walking with my friends, they'd be like laughing at, oh, who is this bum? And I'm laughing too, but I knew that was my dad, right? So on the outside, I'm fitting in. On the inside, I'm breaking up. You know what I mean? So that reshaped most of my high school experience. And so the craziest thing that I've now began to appreciate, most of my games, my dad was thrown out of. My junior, senior year, he came to the games, he would be disrupted, and they'd throw him out. And for the life of me, I was like, telling my mom, I said, Mom, this is like embarrassing. And she would always just tell me, she said, don't forget, when you were young and needed those favorite cleats that you needed, you know how you got them cleats? She said, your dad got you them cleats. Remember y'all wanted those Bo Jackson sneakers? Remember y'all was going to die if you didn't get them Adidas? She would tell me all the time, the way you got those things was because of your dad. And so that was high school. When I finished high school, I can honestly say that I went to school, I was in class, but I wasn't in class. We were from house to house, grandma to auntie, homeless for periods of time. And so that was high school, but I was close with the high school years. In the middle of that, one of the finest women I've ever met was one of my upperclassmen, a year older than me. Sharani, my wife, was one of these girls who was wearing business suits in high school. And in the middle of, this is how good God is, in the middle of all of that chaos, one of my best friends challenged me to invite her out to the prom. She was the girl. She was the girl. And I did. And the rest of the story is, that's how I got to college. She helped me get into college.
So Sharani, your current wife, you like, is the one who kind of influenced you to go to college?
She was the one. I didn't want to go too long, but I know doing an interview, but I'll just say this. She was the one in the middle of all of that. I asked her to the prom. I'm a junior. She's a senior.
Okay.
And, my best friend is her senior classmate. So jokingly, he said, she wants you to ask her to the prom. I'm like, I don't think so. He's like, I'm telling you, she told me. So he was lying the whole time. So I walked up to her, asked her to the prom. She said, no, I don't think so. You're too silly. And you know what that does to most guys.
Yeah.
My focus went like this. And the next few weeks, I was on her hallway. I was trying to carry her books. And she said to me, at 16, she was 17. She said, I would go to the prom with you, but you got to go to college.
What?
And she said, you can go to college. And I'm thinking, my world is, she said, you can go. She said, I will help you, but you're going to have to like tighten up some of the silly stuff you're doing. And long story short, she graduated. I got to be a senior. That senior year, we started dating, and, all she was doing was just kind of positively saying to me, you can do this. You can do this. I still wasn't doing my schoolwork, but she helped me to apply to college. And I got into a junior college. I couldn't go to a four-year school. Got into a junior college. And, the rest is history. That was in 1991.
Yeah.
1991. We married 23 years now, 2 kids. So
wow. So how long, I'm not trying to figure this out in my head too quick. You would know just right away. How long after high school did y'all get married?
So I finished high school in 92. We got married in 1997.
Okay. So
yeah.
Did you finish college? So you went on and went to college, junior college. Then I'm assuming you went and got your 4-year degree. Yeah. So within that time, were you done before y'all got married, or were you still going?
So nope. The short story is, I went to junior college for 1 year. I went to a place. Think about the most remote place in Oklahoma. That's where I was in South Carolina.
Okay.
And didn't see nothing I was familiar with.
Yeah.
For 1 year. And after a year there, I transferred back to the HBCU, Benedict College in Columbia. And we were dating the whole time.
Okay.
So fast forward, she helped me learn how to read. I'm just being honest with you. How to study. Helped me learn how to do simple math. She just encouraged me through exposure. Like, she would take me to, I lived in South Carolina, take me to North Carolina. I come over to dinner and I'm like, what's up with all these cups? What's up with all these spoons and knives on the table, And she was literally like guiding me. She had a really strong father, very strong father, who was a friend of mine because I played ball with her brothers. But I finished Benedict in 1997 in May. And in June of 97, we got married.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to marry her earlier. My sophomore year, and she won't mind me saying this, she was a virgin.
Yeah.
And I had a goal in mind, for your listeners, they can figure out what my goal was. But she would not break. And when I got to her house to ask her to marry me as a sophomore in college, her father met me at the door because I asked him. He said, listen, come here for a second. He said, I have one daughter. He walked me through the house. They had a pretty small house, single family home. And he turned the water on. He turned the lights on. He went into all the rooms and he just pulled the dressers out and just kind of said, here's a few things we have. And he asked me to come back to his bedroom. And he said to me, if you can at least give my daughter these things, water that runs, lights that work, clothes on her back, a roof, he said, you can have her. I was a sophomore. I had a total ulterior motive in asking her to marry me. Because she was a virgin and she just was not budging. And so he said to me, if you can do these things, you can have her. And I went to shake his hand. And as I shook his hand, he said, but here's my only condition. You got to finish college before you marry her. Shook up everything that I had planned for that night. But what I learned along the way was that they had been setting standards for themselves, and it rubbed off on me. So I became focused. I wasn't going to be in college an extra year. You follow me? So I finished in 97. True story, 1.3. I finished high school. 5 years later, I had a 4.0 GPA. I finished with all honors, full scholarship. Didn't owe anybody at the college. But she's the piece that shifted. If you're following the story, things shifted quickly when she came in.
Yeah. Bro, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Is that is that the next book, or is that not?
It's got pieces to it. You know, I'm way more interested in telling the story. She's a lot more humble about it, but it's our story. So I don't want to tell it as my story. It's our story. I don't want to do it without her. But every time I've told pieces of that story, people have been like, "That's crazy." Finished. We got married in 97. I started graduate school in fall of 97. And our first 3 years of marriage, I was getting 2 master's degrees, and she was working. When I finished getting my master's degree, I had, school for 3 years. We switched roles. I was making $13,000 a year the first 3 years of my marriage. $13,000 a year in a $400 a month partner. But what I knew was that this was my partner, my life partner. And she was willing to not get her master's first to help me finish. You know what I mean?
But she graduated first, right, with a bachelor's?
She finished undergrad in 96, the year before.
And then, but let you come, finish school, and then let you go get your master's. So, the thing that shakes me up about this, Patrick, like, it's the power of relationships, right?
Yeah.
Like, you found yourself in a relationship that was able, and I don't think those relationships just have to be guy-girl relationships, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, that could be mentor relationships, how one relationship can come into your life and you go from 1.3 GPA to 4.0, graduating and going to get your master's.
Yeah. One person can change your world.
Yeah.
I'm clear about that. I'm clear. And she helped me kind of discover all the things that made me a people pleaser when I was a kid. Those are the things I like seeing people smile. I was very funny and humorous as a kid too. I mean, I enjoyed, I was the one they would call into the living room and say, come do that dance. And my aunts would be sitting around. I enjoyed the reaction. And so translate that to what I do today. I mean, my work as a social worker with families is, it's all about touching people. Right? All about that. And I give her credit and my parents.
Yeah. Because you don't have to lose that I want to make people laugh and funny. She was just saying you just need to mature a little bit in that, right?
I was serious. I was laughing at the wrong things at the wrong time a lot. A lot. I look back and say, and now I got daughters, Eddie. Now I got daughters. I'm like, he's not funny. He's not funny. I don't know why you smiling, because he's not funny.
Yeah. No, so the funny thing is, so my wife and I went to high school together, and we were just talking about my middle son, and she's like, he's a lot like you. She's like, but you were just disrespectful though. Like he's a kid who likes to have fun and stuff, but he got good manners. I mean, he could, of course, he's a teenager though, but she's like, but he's nothing like, because I was bad. I was trying to be silly and all that stuff too. But we were just talking about, man. And now I have a daughter. I'm like, I don't want her to experience me in high school in any way.
No,
know?
Not at all. Not at all.
So, man, you graduate with this double master's. Your wife goes and gets the master's. Now you got to decide, like, what's next after that. What did that kind of look like for you? And when you were getting your master's, did you already kind of have an idea of where you were headed?
Yeah, I knew in undergrad. My father, I grew up in the same neighborhood I went to undergrad when I came back to Columbia. And so my father was still in the same condition while I was in undergrad. And what I started realizing with my mom's help was that my dad, although he had issues, was a good man. I knew that, but she reminded me several times of things like that. So I knew when I was going to finish school, I wanted to work with fathers. I knew I didn't. There was no fatherhood field. I just knew I wanted to work with men, and I really wanted to say to my dad first, I appreciate you. I just didn't know how to say it. Thank you for doing what you've done. But I did start translating into church and ministry. And one of the things that we did a lot was we found homeless guys. I mean, my heart was touched by my father's story. And so I knew I wanted to do that. And so undergrad, every assignment that we had, you can freely write what you want to write about. I wrote about my father, or I wrote about fathers. When I got to graduate school, they gave these big 30-page papers. I could write them in a night because they were about fathers. And that wasn't like I got to research this. It was here. So quickly throughout undergrad and graduate school, community organizations would start calling me to come and talk about it because I was talking about it in the community. And my papers were getting shared different places. When I finished graduate school, I had a job offer for about 4 or 5 different agencies that wanted me to come and do men's health and things like that. I took a job at a foundation. It was an $85 million organization, and they hired me. I was not a father, but they were about to start a fatherhood initiative in South Carolina. And the CEO took me to lunch, blew me away, and just said, we're starting this initiative, just listening to you talk, following you. This is before social media. You're the perfect guy. And I kept saying to him, wait a minute, I'm not a dad. So I don't want you to hire me thinking I'm a dad. He said, no, but you understand fatherhood. And it was seamless. I mean, it was purpose and passion and preparation all happening at the same time. So that was my first job out of graduate school.
So Fatherhood Initiative, could you explain that a little bit? And then talk about not having to be a father, but the ability to influence how people are fathers, if that makes sense. Can you share those 2 things for us?
Yeah, the Father Initiative in South Carolina was started by the Sister Charity Foundation. They put $10 million on the table to fund programs throughout the state of South Carolina. I was the program manager statewide to actually open up those doors, those programs, and then also teach people when they got the fathers in place, what they should do with those fathers. Again, I was not a father, but I understood that when men decide to walk into a door for help, that's a big step. So let's start off by applauding him for making that step, And that wasn't from any research. That was just personal observation of my own dad. So I did that for 4 years. And so that was kind of paramount to the programs. And so that is what birthed the statewide initiative throughout the state. The work with fathers and not being a dad, is really, all of us have a father. Every last one of us has a father. And what I learned then and what I learned now, what I know now, is every father has a story. Every father has a why to what they're doing. And if people can understand and get close to that why, they understand what they're doing pretty quickly. And what I didn't say that I now know, at the same time my dad took that drink and started smoking and shot those needles, my grandfather had just died at the same time. And so after years of sobriety, his only release at that moment was, I'm gonna go back to what I know. Addiction is serious. He relapsed and it became familiar to him. But every father has a story. And so doing the fatherhood work, to your question, without being a father, I had an understanding and appreciation for a little bit of the journey, not being a dad, a little bit of the journey, and knowing that, he did the best he could. You play sports. When somebody comes off the sideline and says, man, Randy Moss, I tried to call out Randy Moss, coach, I did the best I could. You can't argue with that. Yeah. And so with my father, when I started recognizing that he was doing the best he could, there's nothing else to say.
Yeah. Yeah. What would be some examples of a programming when you talk about this Fatherhood Initiative that you all implemented? What would be some of what that looked like?
Yeah, like what types of services?
Yeah, what types of services would you provide within that program?
Most programs were 6 to 12 weeks. This is back in late 90s, early 2000s. The guys would come for 1 or 2 hours a week for 6 to 12 weeks. There'd be a curriculum that would be delivered, and there'd be groups, and we dig into guys' history. A lot of guys don't know where they're going because they don't know where they came from. We dig into their history. We'd obviously have a conversation about their own fathers. And even at a young age, I was able to communicate elements of forgiveness. I wasn't where I am now, but at the time, I was able to explain to a lot of guys that every father has a story. A lot of guys were saying, blank him, you don't know my dad's story. My dad was this, and the other. And one of the things that the programs do is they really give guys a chance to kind of open the lens a little bit. Mm-hmm. And if they enter forgiveness into their space, they can do so many. It's kind of like releasing a backpack off your back when you do that. Health, wellness, child development. We talk about, a lot of guys think, that you could rough up a newborn. You can't, a lot of guys think that the way that they were taught to as children, you do it again. It's just cycle. We talk about what's effective communication, what are deposits versus withdrawals. And we do some simple exercises, but it was fun, man. The last thing we do is try to get these guys jobs. And so we would do things like mock job interviews. And it'd be funny as all get out because we say, come dressed as if you come into a job interview. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of these guys didn't know. They never had a tie on or a jacket. If somebody asked them, what are your strengths? They'd be like, say it again now. And so we coach them through that conversation. And then the last thing we did a lot of was really, how do you treat the mother of your children like an equal? In South Carolina, I don't know about Oklahoma, but there is a mentality, at least there was, and still is some places, that there's a separate level that men and women are on. And we would coach these guys that you both have the same title, your parents. And so what's that look like? Do you make all decisions? No. There's some things that you're good at, some things your wife is good at. I would always tell a story about my wife is better at managing money. And they would go, crazy, man, you let your woman manage your money. Yeah. And so a lot of that was just kind of social, emotional, and I would say parenting development is what we do with those guys. And then we graduate. When they finish 6 or 12 weeks, they graduate. And as much resistance as you get in the beginning, they'd invite the whole neighborhood to their graduations.
Why was that graduation piece so important? What made y'all implement that?
I think most guys that we were encountering, they were between 16 and 25 and 30. Some of them had never finished anything. And so, and it always be said at graduation, we'd invite the family up to say a few words. And you'd hear all the time, this is the first thing that this boy completed. And you'd see that. And so it was seminal for them to not only finish that, but it give them confidence that the next thing they get into, don't just start it, finish it.
Yeah,
very big.
And I think that speaks something to them. It's almost like when your uncle told you were a king, them graduating, it may not be something verbally spoken to them, but that speaks something to them. And the same confidence that you had after he told that to you, we get that same thing when we graduate and complete something. It's like, oh wait, I can make some moves, right? I can make some moves.
They'd be at Golden Corral with the town school. We do the whole thing. They'd be at Golden Corral. We had a place called Quincy's. They'd be at Quincy's. It was like a buffet style. They'd
I know
be
Quincy's.
At the steakhouse. Oh, okay. Well, they would wear it. They'd be in a gas station pumping. Graduation's over. They'd be at the gas station in everything that they wore to graduation. And although a lot of them would say, I'm good, you ain't got to, But the moment that you say, Hetty Coleman, come on up, this spirit of pride will go over them. And it was just amazing, man, to see their kids, see them graduate. It's got ripple effect.
Yeah.
So it was powerful.
So I follow you on Instagram and, going through your stuff or seeing it pop up or whatever. Man, tell me about this, kind of jumping off there for a sec. Tell me about Michael Jordan and what he means to you. You're a fan.
Oh, man. Well, I'm of the generation that WGN in Chicago used to be a national broadcast. And the Bulls games would come on, like every game came on TV. So he was the first thing that I saw in 1988 that just could fly.
Mm-hmm.
He came to South Carolina for a dunk contest at our college arena, and this is '88. He was young in the league, but he was before he was Michael Jordan. He was touching everybody. He had the Jordans on, and we all watched him fly. And I'm not lying, man. For the next 2 years, we all played with our tongue out, just trying to be like Mike.
Yeah.
I watched Sunday night's episode, and I got emotional just because it took me back to the simplicity of life, but he was also good.
Yeah.
And what I'm excited about today, there's always a debate about who's the best. He was awesome, man.
Yeah. Who's the best? LeBron, Kobe, or Michael?
I'm a Michael fan, man. I love all the three guys you mentioned. But because of my era, it's like my parents talking about Bill Russell. I'm like, Bill Russell was dominant? I mean, what? He got 11 rings. That's who they saw.
Yeah.
My years, I saw Michael Jordan up close and personal, but he was our first Superman.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think he could do anything wrong. I still don't think it.
Yeah.
I still don't think it. But what about you? Did you watch?
What, Sunday?
Yeah.
Or just Jordan in general?
Yeah, Jordan in general.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. My wife, like, I don't watch a lot of TV or anything like that. But we were there. We sat down and watched it. Like, I went and got ice cream, and we sat down and watched it because man. I mean, there wasn't anybody like Michael Jordan, unless Michael Jackson. As far as like just iconic, and we're gonna turn on the TV every time he was on, and at that time you didn't have social media, so any little glimpse of his life that you could see, you was like, like it was a big deal, and so you had to watch him. And yeah, man, and I think basketball was different then than it is now. So it's just really hard to begin to tell, like, who's the best, like you said, like all three of those guys are talented. Like, I think LeBron's a beast, and I don't even know if it's fair to compare the two. Like, he's just naturally, it's kind of like, And so I think Michael Jordan had to work a little bit more than what LeBron. I'm not saying LeBron doesn't work, but Michael had to work, and watching this even proves that even more. Like, he had to put in some work to get to where he was at. And I think his story's similar to yours in the sense of, like, how you had that 1.3 and then came up and hit that 4.0. Like, there was that period where he got shut down and he had to come back and start working really hard.
Yeah.
So that's great. And I think, too, for fathers, like, hearing you talk about fathers that have these challenges and bringing them into these programs, there's this transition in which I love about people, that if we want to put our minds to something, surround ourselves with the right people, the story is amazing.
It's, I think most of us have in us things that we enjoy and things that have brought us pain. And in my life, as I've been speaking to people and just in my own journey, I think your purpose is birthed out of some type of pain sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of the people who are fitness fanatics, they were either overweight themselves or they had somebody close to them who were overweight and struggled.
Yeah.
And so they know they're dangerous. But pain is part of the journey, man. If you try to skip that, you're missing it.
Yeah.
You're missing it.
Yeah.
You're missing it.
Yeah, I think that's why there's so many books now about hustle, like people who grew up poor, you know, and now have become successful entrepreneurs. Like, that ability to, like, I was telling somebody the other day, like, somebody had challenged me on some work that I was doing, not in a bad way, but as though like I questioned, like, I don't think this is what I want to do, this part of the job. And they kind of challenged me, and I'm like, I don't know if you can challenge somebody who's been poor. Like, money's not my motivation, right? Like,
same here.
Like,
same here.
So that's the only thing you think you got. Like, there's gonna be
you missed me.
Yeah, you missed me. Like, no, man, I grew up poor. We ate surf sandwiches, and I'm okay. Like, but I had fun as a kid, you know, and had a great time. So man, no, life and the journey is amazing. You talked about helping fathers identify their strengths. What did that? How did you help people? Because that's a challenge for some people to really get to understand what their strengths are. How did you help them discover that? And then how did you speak to that strength, not just finding the strength to find work, but also finding that strength to be a father. Did they correlate
Yeah.
any?
Yeah. I think from my own experience, I believe it's not what I've read. I believe that we all have gifts and talents. And talking about men specifically, we like being coached. I didn't know I could run a fly route until my coach told me, get down the field and be there in 10 seconds. I didn't know until I got coached. And so the framework that I use when I work with fathers is, one is respect at all times. I manage the way I speak with them. You never know who you're running up on. So I'll say, Mr. Coleman, until you say, call me Hetty, I'll say, Mr. Coleman. Most guys, if you start with respect, pretty much you can do anything else with them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks that make the mistake of trying to take your hat off before you come in here. You don't even know my name. It doesn't work. My father, now that I'm older, I recall a lot of wisdom, but he would say, and I use a lot with our fathers, that you cannot correct me unless you're connected to me. And he always used to tell the story about it. He went into an establishment and they said, boy, take the hat off, that he'd be ready to square up on somebody. But if he went to his mother's house and she used the same words, boy, take that hat off, there's no issue. So they're connected, which makes that easier to change or challenge the behaviors. With fathers, I spend the first little bit of time, would that be weeks, sometimes months, building the connection. Once I can build that connection, Eddie, you know this, I can take him anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the fundamental thing that I think has made my career go so long. It's just remembering how I worked as a kid. The second thing I think is really giving them confidence. Most guys receive constructive criticism as not constructive. They can as criticism.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is to give you the mic and say, after this conversation, I may have some thoughts, but what do you think we can do better?
Mm-hmm.
And give him the ownership of acknowledging things versus you being constructive. Again, people think constructive kind of makes it nicer. No, all he hears is criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And so using the words is very careful with the fathers. And so I think the last thing that I've tried my best to do is I believe that teaching involves touching. So I'm a pound fanatic. I high five guys. Once it's good and the space is right, I hug guys. And some of these guys have never experienced that, and particularly from a man. A lot of the guys that I have seen over years have been molested. And so I know folks who say, I'm going to hug him so he can. Well, that's why you get some guys who are like, hold up. I don't even know where this is going.
Yeah.
But I think it's those three things: to respect, the connection, and then just the human element of encouraging him with touch along the way. I've had countless stories of guys who people thought were like animals. And I go into prisons all the time. I'm 5'6" still. Nothing has changed. I've gone into prisons, and that frame is, one that God has given me. And I'm just myself. I share my failures. People might meet me at this point in my life and they'll assume a lot of stuff. And the guys are like, what? Like, yeah, 1.3. What?
Mm-hmm.
You? Like, yeah, I wish I didn't have that story to tell, but I'm glad I do.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's so good. So you worked within the organization for a while. Like, you had an employer, right? You worked for somebody. Now you work for yourself.
Yep.
What made you want to make that transition? Why would you want to go work for yourself versus, you got to hustle that dollar now?
Comfort. You know what? I think I had a moment at about 2010, maybe 2012. I was working for a huge company, and in the middle of everything, I got an invitation to go to Malaysia to present at a conference because of my fatherhood expertise and blah, blah, blah. And I went to my supervisor, and I never forget this, Hetty. They were going to pay for me they found me. They did enough research to get my email. They found me, and they asked me to come to this conference in Malaysia to speak about fatherhood. And so I went to my supervisor. I was being a soldier. hierarchy, respect, protocol. My supervisor, I said, hey, I got this invitation from this group. It's an established group. They're international, and they've asked me to come and speak at their conference. They're going to pay for everything. I said, so before I get back to them, I just want to run it by you and just make sure that, nothing, you think anything? Should I think of, what else would you add to my questions? I'm assuming this is all good. And she says to me, and this is not bad because I appreciate her to this day. We're still in touch. She says to me, I've never been to Malaysia. I said, oh, okay, well, you should come. I'm trying to make this less confrontational. She said, I am going to decline this request for you to go to. I said, I might not have said it right, but they're paying for it. There's no cost to us. They're not paying nothing. Free, basically, free. She said, no, I've never been there, so you're not going. I said, okay. And so I left the room, the office, thinking like, this gotta be she's joking. And so she wasn't joking. And I never forget when I finally, it settled on me, I went home and I told my wife about it. And I just wanted my mom's hug. That's how bad I felt. That's how hurt I was that I presented this opportunity for something I'm passionate about. And because of your insecurity or whatever it is, you don't see this in my future. I did not go to Malaysia. Two of my mentors I called to constructively just kind of help me understand. And one of them, her name is Diane Dawson. She worked in DC for a long time. She's like a mother to me. She said, you are now prepared to build your runway. And so she said, take whatever you feel and it's time for you to create something. And not in any malice, it was like, you got what you needed now.
Yeah.
So don't get mad at her, thank her, for doing that. And that night, within a matter of minutes, I drew up my now company, Global Partners. You remember this? Global Partners for Fathers and Families, because I saw myself globally. And it was fire that was created inside of me. And since that time, I've been to 7 countries, not in spite of, with support from that experience. I've been to now 45 states doing work with fathers, jails, prisons, conferences, universities. But that was the inspiration behind me doing that, because I felt like I never want to take something that was personal to me and have to ask permission to accomplish it. So it wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
It was actually a good thing, but that was the motivation behind that. And then I had my wife for 20 years who's been saying to me, we should work together. And I'll be honest, when I first got married to her, she don't like the radio on at night. I like the radio on at night. She likes ketchup in the fridge. I like ketchup in the pantry. I'm like, nah, we're not working together. We're not working together. I'm sorry. That was the beginning of my marriage. And all these years she would say, Patrick, you have it. You can do this on your own. And you know what today looks like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You posted a quote that says, growth is looking at a common issue from a different perspective. You remember that?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's true.
Talk about that in regards to your company.
A lot of times, I think it's a great question. A lot of times I think people see something one way and they think it is the end. I've grown accustomed to ending is better than pending. There's nothing worse than you waiting on somebody to tell you you're approved. So I'd rather you tell me we're not approved. Perspective-wise, when it comes to business, I am in many conversations every day with folks. And for me, it's important to have more than one angle when you look in that situation. That has not come easily because I like winning. I like success. But what I've learned is you got to also look at the other person's perspective. And so that's kind of what that ties to in my business.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Explain to people exactly what Global Partners do and what you actually do within your company.
Yeah, 2 things that you'll find me doing. My phone rings most days. I'm answering one call about working with fathers, men, and boys. So I may be doing a training. I might be in a prison. I may be training social workers. I might be speaking as a keynote for a conference specifically around fathers and fatherhood, men and boys. We host annually the largest fathers and sons conference in South Carolina. We get about 700 fathers and sons to come together. The last 5 years, sponsorships from IBM, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's. So that space is all heart. That's the nonprofit side of my body. On the other phone is people who are nonprofits who are seeking grants. And so because of my experience over the years, I've had to write grants to support the work I'm doing. I've got a team of 8 people that actually help me write grants for nonprofits. And so if I'm not writing grants, I'm training people on doing grants. And so, during COVID-19, me speaking publicly has lessened, but the grant side, we have fourfold our business in the last 5 weeks.
Wow.
Doing grants, fourfold our business. I've had to hire 4 people in that's how it happened the last 4.5, 5 weeks. Fourfold our business. And what that says to me, and I've been on a couple different conversations with brothers. I started my business with that issue that I told you about. And I've done a couple other things, like I was scared to do grant training. I was really scared to do it because I was afraid people were going to judge me and all that kind of stuff. But I've had people around me who have pushed me, but I've also been a very big fan of when you feel in your spirit to do something, do it. And I started doing grant training 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Not the biggest crowds, but I was literally practicing how to get good at what I want to be great at. And today, there are people who, on my fatherhood phone, they don't know me as a grants guy. And there are folks on my grants phone. So I've got 2 different lines of business that allow me to do business in multiple places at multiple times, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Move. When you have the talent and you are scared, still you have to move. And if people can grab that, there is so much that's going to come, because even in the middle of it, you don't know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
But I was prepared 6 years ago for today. So when COVID-19 hit, I've started to appreciate, you know what? I've been hustling pretty good, and it's been profitable. But I forgot about how much I can do from this chair that allows me to go from this conversation downstairs and have lunch versus I won't get to see y'all until tomorrow when I get from Dallas or whatever it is. So fatherhood, men and boys on one side, and then a lot of grants and nonprofits. We've done about $55 million in nonprofit grants.
Come on, man. $55 million in the last how many years?
It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years. The last 10 years, the majority that we've raised for nonprofits and for our own company. We write grants a lot.
Yeah. Man, that's really cool, man. And I don't want to take up, I said 60 minutes, man, but I got to ask about boxing.
Yeah. Love boxing.
How did that get started, man? What does that mean to you?
Floyd Mayweather. I'll be short. Floyd Mayweather. He's my size. I never knew him in his early career until the last 10 years. But I've gotten into not only that, but the training. As I get older, I can't do what I used to do. But their training to do what they do in the ring, the preparation for that, I find it matches my life. When I'm presenting, people are like, oh, wow, man, I could do that. I don't think you know what I've had to go through to get here. So boxing is a game of inches, but the strategy that's involved. So I love it. I can't even, my wife will tell you, I have an iPad, I have a TV on, and I'll be, in particular when boxing was going on, I'll be watching 2 fights at one time. That's how much I love boxing.
Like people watch football games. That's how some people watch football games. You watch boxing in that same way. That's cool, man. That's cool.
Love it.
So go win is defined as continuing those right things that allow for you to achieve the wins you want for your life in order to live out your greatest story. What would you say are 3 right things that you need to be consistent in to achieve your greatest story? What would be some of the three right things for you?
I would say one is a connection to faith. For me, it's Jesus Christ. The wind blows sometimes in different directions, and you got to be anchored. I can smile every day because I'm anchored. I don't have that worry. If I didn't have to fourfold my business the last 45 days, I would still be smiling. So God gives me hope. I'm very clear about that. That's the only way I've been able to get to where I am now. The second thing I would say is forgiveness. You got to make sure that you let go of the extra and dead weight that people carry. A lot of us have been hurt by people that we love or that we thought loved us. And we are, you're kind of aging with some of that rust on you. And you can't even get fluid motion from your body parts because you're carrying that rust. My father and I, at the end of his life, my dad died in 2015, the last 5 years of his life, I spoke to him almost every day and had a chance to hear his whole story. And he said 2 words to me that changed my life forever. He said, "I'm sorry." And I said back to him, "I'm sorry." And so I'm not lying. I found wings after that conversation. I didn't know I had wings, but he affirmed me in a way that allowed me to understand that forgiveness is central to anything that we're doing. My father kept every article. In all those years he was coming to those games, getting thrown out, he kept every article. That I wish I had all these articles. When he was about to die, he showed me this book. He had every article. Every time I was in the paper, he had every article that had ever been mentioned in the paper, little or big headlines, every article. And then the last thing is you can't do it by yourself. I give my wife credit. My mom, I give a lot of credit. My dad, my siblings, my teammates, the players that didn't think I could score on them. You got to have people who help you along the way. And so team matters. You can't do it by yourself. I do nothing by myself. And so allowing yourself to be coachable and using teammates is really important. So I think those are 3 things I think are just paramount to my life.
That's good. That's good. That's good, man. How do people find more about you? How can people, website, social media, where you at?
Well, before I do that, man, I just want to thank you for just a chance to connect. I love you. I love the work you're doing. I think you're an incredible guy from when I first met you, and just really proud of you for taking this platform to where it's at now. Facebook, Patrick Patterson, pretty easy to find me. I don't have an avatar. It's my face. Social media, Instagram and Twitter is the same. Patrick Pat with 1 T, 803. Patrick Pat with one T, 803. And then on our website is globalpartnersff.com. Globalpartnersff.com for fathers and families.
Man, Patrick, I can't express in words how much I get to enjoy watching you from a distance on social media and things like that. I'm a big fan of people who build things. You're not only building an organization, but you're helping people build their lives. And because of that, you don't even realize how many lives that you're probably impacting because you're building other people's lives. And when I think about having go-in conversations, it's more of conversations with people like yourself. And I thank you for helping me go nationally with my podcast as well.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. It's a national podcast. Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
So, man, thank you so much for just doing this. And I love watching you with your girl. There's so much more I could have talked about.
Good.
But we can have a round 2, and maybe probably won't be on the podcast, so we just need to catch up because your daughter is being a husband, just all that, man. I just appreciate you and from the early days when we first connected through the work that we were doing together at that time. So, man, thank you.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for hitting that play button for the Hetty Coleman podcast. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, go win.